Hello and welcome students to Make Pro Classes, my official YouTube channel. Myself Piraj Mojumdar, Assistant Professor of Mechanical Engineering Department, GKCM, that is Greater Kolkata College of Engineering and Management under GIS Group. Welcome you to our new session of Advanced Welding Technology, where we will be uploading all the lecture series according to MacOut syllabus day by day. So keep in touch with us for getting daily updates. You can also contact me through 9433465217, that is my personal phone number, or even you can email me at pirasar@gmail.com. You can also connect me through social networking, that is Facebook page, which is known as Make Pro Classes. So let us start today's online session. We have arrived at the concluding heading of the module 7, which is also the concluding module of this particular advanced welding technology. So today we'll be discussing this safe practices. What are the safe measures, safe practices to be taken during welding process? Previously we have completed this discussing of types of welding defects, their causes, their inspection and remedial measures, and also we have discussed in testing of welded joints by visual inspection, and the last video we have discussed a little bit of DP testing, ultrasonics and radiography as well. Okay, so let us begin today's class on the safety practices in welding. So talking about the welding safety, here is a picture of a ideal this safety practices to be used while welding. So you have to check these things, whether you have the welding helmet, welding jacket, welding pants, welding boots, welding gloves, safety glasses, leather spats. Now you are ready for welding. Okay, so these things you have to, these are the welding safety checklist. Now arc welding is safe when sufficient measures are taken to protect the welder from potential hazards. When these measures are overlooked or ignored, welders can encounter such dangers as electric shock, overexposure to radiation, fumes and gases, fire or explosion, any of which can result in fatal injuries. Now, coming to the personal protection. Protective clothing must allow freedom of movement while providing adequate coverage against burns from sparks, weld spatter, and arc radiation. Many types of clothing offer protection from ultraviolet radiation exposure, which appears as a skin burn much like sunburn. Because of its durability and resistance to fire, wool clothing is suggested instead of synthetics, which melt when exposed to extreme heat, or cotton unless it is specially treated for fire protection. Now you have to keep your clothes free of grease and oil. These substances may ignite and burn uncontrollably in the presence of oxygen. So you have to avoid rolling up sleeves and pant cuffs because sparks or hot metal could get stuck in the folds. Wear trousers that overlook work boots not tucked in to keep particles from falling into the boots. Leather high top boots with steel toes are recommended, especially when doing heavy work. Now, other protective wear for heavy work or specially hazardous includes flame resistant suits, aprons, leggings, leather sleeves, shoulder caps, and caps worn under a helmet. Protective wear shields the welder from heat, sparks, and UV radiation. Heavy, flame resistant gloves such as leather should always be worn to protect hands from burns, cuts, and scratches. As long as they are dry and in good condition, they offer some insulation against electric shock. Now, shock hazards. A shock can be received from primary, that is, the input voltage, by touching a lead inside the welder with the power to the welder on while having your body or hand on the welder case or other grounded metal. Remember, turning the welder power switch off does not turn the power off inside the welder. The input power cord must be unplugged or the power disconnect switch turned off. So you have to keep in mind that turning the welder power switch off does not turn the power off inside the welder. A secondary voltage shock can occur when touching a part of the electrode circuit, such as bare spot on the electrode cable. At the same time, a part of the body is touching another side of the welding circuit, the work or welding ground. The conditions that increase the likelihood of a severe shock are wet conditions and welding in or on a metal workpiece. So you have to keep in mind that you should use plywood, rubber mats, or other dry insulation to stand or lie in. You have to keep your gloves dry, even if this means keeping an extra pair. So don't rest body, arms, or legs on the workpiece, especially if clothing is wet or bare skin is exposed. Under such very poor welding conditions, you have to follow these rules or use a semi-automatic constant voltage welder with cold electrode or a stick welder equipped with a device to reduce voltage at the electrode when no welding is being performed. Plastic or fiber insulation on the electrode holder prevents contact with electrically hot metal and parts inside. Always inspect the electrode holder before turning the welder on. Replace the holder if it is damaged. Don't try to repair it unless replacement parts are at hand. A damaged electrode cable should be replaced or at minimum repaired using electrical tape. If the cable has been repaired, check that the tape is secure before turning the welder on. A stick electrode is always electrically hot when the welder is on. Treat it with respect. If a shock is experienced, think of it as a warning. Check equipment, work habits, and work area to determine what is wrong before continuing to weld. Talking about the radiation, it is essential that eyes be protected from radiation exposure. Even a brief exposure to UV radiation can cause eye burn, known as welder's flash. While this condition is not always apparent until severe hours after exposure, it causes extreme discomfort and can result in swelling, fluid secretion, and temporary blindness. Normally, welder's face flash is temporary, but repeated or prolonged exposure can lead to permanent eye injury. Besides not looking at an arc, the only other preventive measure is the use of proper eye shading filters. The general rule is to choose a filter too dark to see the weld, then move to the lighter shades without dropping below the minimum protective rating. Helmet type shields and handheld face shields offer the most complete shading against arc radiation. The shields protect the head, face, ears, and neck from heat, sparks, and flames. As a minimum, use safety glasses with side shields or goggles to protect eyes from flying particles. Side shields on eyewear help protect eyes from flying particles. While infrared radiation can usually be felt as heat, there is no real way to tell if you are being exposed to UV radiation. Don't take any chances and always wear eye protection. Fumes. Fume plumes contain solid particles from consumables, base metals, and base metal coatings. Depending on the length of exposure to these fumes, most acute effects are temporary and include symptoms of burning eyes and skin, dizziness, nausea, and fever. Zinc fumes can cause metal fume fever, a temporary illness that is similar to the flu. Chronic long-term exposure to welding fumes can lead to siderosis, that is the iron deposits in the lungs, and may affect pulmonary function. Cadmium is a toxic metal found on steel as a coating or in silver solders. Cadmium fumes can be fatal even under brief exposure, with symptoms much like those of metal fume fever. 20 minutes of welding in the presence of cadmium can enough to cause fatalities. Symptoms appear within an hour and death may occur 5 days later. The gases that result from an arc welding process also present a potential hazard. Most of the shielding gases, argon, helium, and carbon dioxide, are non-toxic, but as they are released, they displace oxygen in the breathing air, causing dizziness, unconsciousness, and death if the brain is denied its needed oxygen long enough. Heat and UV radiation can irritate lungs and cause eyes to tear. Some degreasing compounds such as trichloroethylene, perchloroethylene can decompose from heat and UV radiation to form phosgene, a highly toxic gas. Ozone and nitrogen oxides are formed when UV radiation meets air. These gases causes headaches, chest pains, irritation of the eyes, and itchiness in the nose and throat. So you have to keep your head out of the fume plume. You have to use mechanical ventilation or local exhaust at the arc to direct the fume plume away from the face. If this is not sufficient, you have to use fixed or movable exhaust hoods to draw fumes from the general area. Ventilation should draw all welding fumes away from the work. It may be necessary to wear an approved respiratory device if sufficient ventilation cannot be provided. As a result of rule of thumb, if the air is visible, clear, and you are comfortable, then ventilation is probably adequate. Now, there is also some fire hazards. Because of the extreme temperatures associated with any arc welding process, always be aware of fire hazards. The welding arc can reach temperature of up to 10,000 Fahrenheit, but this heat in itself is not generally a fire hazard. The danger of fire results from the effects of this intense heat upon the work and in the form of sparks and molten metals. Because this can spray up to 35 feet from the work, recognize and distance yourself from combustible materials. It is also important to be sure that work is in contact with any is not in contact with any combustible which it may ignite when heated. Observe where sparks and metals are falling. If there are flammable materials including fuel or hydraulic lines in the work area and they or the work cannot be moved, put a fire resistant shield in place. If the welding above the ground or from a ladder
Be sure that there are no combustibles underneath. Don't forget about co-workers who wouldn't appreciate being hit with slag or sparks from the work. Fire watch personnel may be required. Now, explosion hazards. Because of the explosive nature of welding gas cylinders, you have to pay particularly close attention to their storage and use. You have to examine the cylinder and check the label to ensure it is the correct shielding gas for the process. You have to check that regulators, hoses, and fittings are the right ones for that gas and pressure and are in good condition. Cylinders must be stored in an upright position with the valve caps in place in an area away from combustibles and fuels and safeguarded from damage, heat, and flames. When they are in use, you have to keep them out of traffic routes and away from flying sparks with all hoses run neatly to the welding area. You have to never allow the electrode or other electrically hot part of the weld to touch a cylinder. Never move cylinders without the valve cap in place. So, look, you must check whether the room or welding area contains at least 22 feet into 22 feet into 22 feet for each welder, that is a 10,000 cubic feet. The ceiling height is not less than 16 feet. Cross ventilation is not blocked by partitions, equipment, or other structural barriers. Welding is not done in a confined space. Spaces that do not meet these requirements should be equipped with mechanical ventilating equipment that exhaust at least 2000 CFM of air for each welder, except where local exhaust hoods, boots, or airline respirators are used. Now, there are some things, I have already talked most of the things: exposure, bonds, welding safety. So, let us have some discussion over here in these pictures. So what we have here, for safety rules for arc welding: wear skull caps under helmet to protect head from particles or spatter. Keep buttoned parts of clothing such as collar, shirt sleeves, and pockets. Have cuffs of pants turned down in order to avoid catching weld spatter. Avoid wearing rugged cloths while welding. Avoid handling hot metal. Twist electrode free or remove holder before removing your helmet if electrode should freeze in welding. And give the word cover to all people standing nearby when ready to strike an arc. That you should maintain. Okay. Do not weld around small children as they tend to look directly at the arc. Next, you have to examine the head shield or helmet and collar lens, making sure that there are no cracks which will permit leakage of light airs. Now, the safe practices in welding: always weld in a well ventilated place. Fumes given off from welding are unpleasant and in some cases may be injurious, particularly from galvanized or zinc coated parts. Do not weld around combustible or inflammable materials where sparks may cause a fire. Never weld containers which have been used for storing gasoline, oil, or similar materials. Without first having them thoroughly cleaned. Check the welding machine to make sure that it is properly grounded and that leads properly insulated. Never look at the arc with the naked eye. These are the most important things, as this will cause temporary blindness. So we have to keep in mind this all things I am discussing right now with you. The arc can burn your eyes severely. Always use a face shield while welding. Prevent welding cables from coming in contact with hot metal, water, oil, or grease. Avoid dragging the cables around sharp corners. Ensure proper insulation of the cables and check for openings. Always wear the safety hand gloves, apron, and leather shoes. Always turn off the machine when leaving the work. Apply eye drops after welding is over for the day to relieve the strain on the eyes. While welding, stand on dry footing and keep the body insulated from the electrode, any other parts of the electrode holder and the work. Type of welding hazards. Electric shock. Keep dry and wear dry gloves. Stand or lie on plywood, rubber mats, or other insulation. Do not rest any part of the body on the workpiece. Keep electrodes and electrode holders in good condition. Do not touch electrodes or metal parts with either the skin or wet clothing. Welding operators use highly technical welding processes that can create dangerous situations and conditions in the workplace. Both oxyacetylene and electric arc welding can pose safety and health hazards for welders and workers nearby. Exposure to these hazards can result in discomfort, temporary or permanent physical injury, or even death. But welding can be safe if you protect yourself from the dangers. You owe it to yourself and your fellow workers to find out what the hazards are, evaluate their presence in the work environment, and learn how to control them. If welding is in the hangar is necessary, observe these precautions. During welding process, there should be no open fuel tanks and no work on fuel system should be in progress. No painting should be in progress. No aircraft are to be within 35 feet of the welding operation. No flammable material should be in the area around the welding operation. Safety most important considers to both work and employer. Welding no more dangerous than other industrial operations. Safety precautions and protective equipment required for MIG-MAG process. Essentially same as for any other electric welding process. So these are the checklists: welding cap, dust mask, leather welding jacket, long pants, high top leather work boots, safety glasses, welding helmet, gauntlet type welding gloves, leather apron, leather spats. So obtain any required hot work permits. Remove any flammable substances from the work area before starting a job. Use a combustible gas indicator or sensor to detect any airborne flammable gases when working on a flammable flooring such as wood. Weight down or cover with a flame resistance shield. Cover flammables with a fireproof tarp when the objects cannot be removed. Smoke only in designated area. Keep your work area free from trash. Keep a fire extinguisher handy. Frequently check to make sure the extinguisher are charged and in operational conditions. Always pay attention. So today we have covered the safety practices in welding, and we have also covered the last heading of this concluding module 7 of advanced welding process. So I hope you have enjoyed the total journey of this advanced welding process. If you have any doubts, you can comment me in comment section or you can call me. So that's all for today's class. Thanks for watching.